Okay, so did everyone have a chance to read the article by chance?
Yes.
Yes. I
All
think
right.
skim would be a more appropriate word for what I did. But
Yeah, it was a pretty long article. It seemed a little bit
was.
longer than the other ones. But I actually was a little bit familiar with this article because in my B101 class, we discussed it. And so I was a little familiar with it. And so I was able to read through it and kind of remember what it was about. But would anyone like to recap what the article is on, or would you want me to do that? I can go ahead and do it. So, Noodles Company, I'm sure most of you have heard of it, started in the year, I believe it was 1998. And Aaron Kennedy was the founder and the CEO. And I like how it starts off with him like riding his bike. He was just like having this, I guess we'll call it a revelation, or he's just kind of pondering on what he needs to do with the company, and all these situations are coming up, and he's running through what he needs to do for the company so they can reach its full potential. We see that early on that Noodles and Company kind of struggled. And I found it really interesting that like for the first few months, they didn't even realize that. They just like didn't even, I guess, really look at their reports and didn't realize that they were kind of struggling. But not too long after that, I think it was like just a few months in, they decided that they had to pick themselves up and do what's right. And it talks about when he and his partners were experiencing with that flood, where they came back to their store and the basement was flooded, and they were talking to each other and saying, all right, this is the make or break moment. And I think it's really cool to see that make or break moment, just because I think that gives a lot of people hope when they're trying to start up their own company, because I'd imagine it's pretty hard. I've never done it, but I'm sure that those moments happen quite often. And so when you are able to pick yourself up and just dust yourself off and go and be able to see the results is really, really amazing. But we get to the point where Noodles and Company is expanding. It's doing really well, but now they're heading into some problems. They're expanding so fast that they're trying to figure out if they should franchise, if they shouldn't franchise, and make sure that they keep their culture the same. There's just a few concerns that are definitely in the back of their minds. And so does anyone else want to add on to that? I'm sure I missed something.
It seemed like there was a lot of growth in their market. There was when they got to the point where they wanted to do this big expansion, they noticed that there were a lot of other restaurants that were starting up and that were in the same kind of market as them. So then they were trying to decide, well, do we grow as rapidly as we had planned, or is this a good time to do this? Or they were kind of asking themselves, do we need to be first to the market? I thought this was interesting. Do we want to be first to the market or best to the market?
Yes. So I'm going to be honest, I don't know what's going on, but my laptop, I don't know if you guys have, I might have a bad connection right now, but you cut out like that whole time, other than being first to the market. Is your guys' internet working well? It might be mine.
Mine's fine.
I'm good
All
here. I heard all of what she said.
Probably my Wi-Fi then. Okay. Okay. Sorry, could you repeat that? I apologize. I feel really bad.
It's okay. Just at the time when they were starting to, they were trying to decide they were going to go for this really rapid growth. They realized there were a lot of other restaurants that were coming out that were very similar to what they were doing. And so they were trying to decide whether they should be, they said, do we want to be first to the market or best to the market? And they were trying to decide what they should do, if they should grow as rapidly and as extensively as they had planned, or whether they should hold back, or that was one of the questions they had.
Yes. Awesome. Thank you. Does anyone else have anything that they would like to add to that? Okay, well, I guess we'll just start in. So the question that I was really thinking about was in regards to Noodles and Company, I guess what specific challenge are they facing in regards to like growing too quickly? Because that was something that was sticking out to me, that they were just growing so fast that it was almost like they didn't know what to do. And so is hindering them from being able to progress quickly, but not too quickly so that they lose business. What do you guys think about that?
So I feel like a little shout out to Michelle here. It's all about the financials, at least from what I was reading. You know, you have this guy who's maxing credit cards and taking all kinds of loans. So it was a make or break type of situation. If it didn't work, if they didn't succeed, then he's going to be in a really bad financial spot. You know, and so, but you have to invest in the company and take out loans to make it work. So it's that kind of that balance there.
Yeah. Yeah, it's kind of interesting to see how much money he was willing to put in the company. But I think going on with what you said, I think you do have to have that attitude. You have to have the attitude of, I'm going to invest everything I got and we're going to make it the best company you can. And I mean, he was confident that it would work out. And I mean, as far as we can see, that it worked out. But that is a little risky. I don't know if I personally would be able to do all of that, just because that's a lot of debt. That's a lot of credit card. That's a lot of mortgages and all that stuff. So did anyone have anything else that they would like to add on to that?
Yeah, I do. I think one of the things they were facing is the fact that they didn't have their processes very well established at the beginning, you know, and that caused their first two stores to kind of struggle. It wasn't up until the third store, when they actually had gone through some difficulties and they actually polished up their processes until they were able to get some gain. And I think that's, you know, started to happen. And I think that was one of their biggest setbacks at the beginning.
Yeah. I agree with that. Does anyone else have any comments that they'd like to add to that?
I think they were also a little nervous about keeping their company culture. They had a great, I guess, they had really good customer service. They prided themselves in being very customer oriented. He was also very, how do I put this? He also wanted his employees to be very happy. So he did all kinds of things to motivate them to make the business, the restaurant's a good place to be in, a good atmosphere. And so in the idea of growing very rapidly, there was a concern that they would be able to keep that company culture moving forward, because as they were growing a little slower, they would take some of their experienced managers and some of their experienced employees and move them into the new store so that they could incorporate those values into the new employees. Well, if they're going to grow that rapidly, it would be difficult to do that. And so I think there was a concern there that they would be able to keep that focus and that and their company values the way they wanted them.
Yeah. So I would like to ask all you, do you all think that that was a pretty good idea to bring the experienced workers into the new one and then the new workers into the experience? I guess the experienced restaurant that was like succeeding?
I think it was a good idea.
I think it's an excellent idea to do that too. Once you have already got people that know what they're doing, to bring them in to teach and pass the values that they've already gotten down to the new people. That way you can, try to build your company from within, with everybody having the same values and knowing the expectations.
Right, and I think that goes back to when they sat down after they were having such trouble with the first couple of stores that they had. They came up with their 15, I think it was 15 weaknesses that they realized they needed to change. Focused on that, so they wanted to make sure that they didn't revert to that, and that was a good way to do it, is to make sure that the new people that were coming in were trained in what they wanted.
Oh yeah, I agree 100% with both of those comments. I think that I personally would really like to be in that situation because you would hit the ground running. And like Trent and Michelle said, if you were new and you just came into the company and you saw like, okay, this is working, they're successful, like this is the kind of culture that we want, and we know that it'll bring results for us and they're going to be good results, I think that's great. I personally, when I first read this case study, I really thought that was interesting because I had never really thought of that. But when I read that, I was like, man, that makes total sense. Just because I think it personally speeds up the process. It's a little bit quicker learning curve, but I think if you want to be successful, you got to be willing to learn a little bit quicker. And so I personally thought that was a really good idea that they did. So I guess going off of that, do you think Noodles and Company can maintain that same culture if they do continue to grow? Because if they keep growing the way they are, it looks like it's going to be pretty difficult to keep switching new and experienced people to different locations. So what do you think would be the key for them to be able to keep that corporate culture where like they're just focused on the customer, they're providing really good food for great service and just all those things? How would they keep that culture and continue to grow so quickly?
So one thing I thought was really interesting that they did was they were just very selective about whom they hired, especially as they got into the process. Like, okay, we're not just going to choose just anyone. We're going to choose someone who is committed to our value set. It's the way we do business. Mm-hmm. I think that can definitely be, I don't know, just an important way to do things. I know, I said before, I worked for Walmart, and 2.2 million associates worldwide, strong company culture, and talked about a lot at corporate. But at least from what I hear, that's not always the case at the store level. And I think, of course, once you get into that, it'd definitely be difficult. But just making sure that at every level, you're hiring people who are committed to your way of doing business, not just, well, we need bodies, so we're going to hire some people. Yeah, I think going along with that, when they're talking about how they made the 16-year-old kids who were line cooks feel like they're a part of the company, they offered them incentives for good performance. You're just really making everyone involved. I thought it was cool.
Yeah.
Right. Their employees were really loyal and stuck with them because of those the way they were treated. Like you said, the incentives. If they got, they had people come in. I can't remember what they're called. When they come in and they're they act like they're well, they are customers, but they are there to rate them on how they're doing their service, that kind of thing. If they get two perfect scores in a row, then everybody working gets, all the employees get a bonus of some sort. I thought that was really good. I also noticed that when they first go into a place, they do everything they can to get as many people in to apply for jobs. They do all kinds of creative things to get all kinds of people in, so they can pick those types of people that they're looking for, that have those qualities that they're looking for. And then from there on, they just rely on word of mouth, because it's such a good place to work. Nobody wants to leave, and then they tell their friends, if there's ever an opening. I just thought that was good. It's a good way to do things.
Yeah, I personally really like how they did that system. I worked for a company that basically runs off of that same kind of motto. I worked for a mosquito abatement, so it was with the government, and the manager was in my parents' home ward, and I got back from my mission, and I just heard through word of mouth because my siblings worked there, and so I went up and talked to my, I guess, fellow ward member, and he offered me a job. But when I got there for the first time, I talked to everyone, got to know them, and as I talked to everyone, basically everyone that was there heard of the job from someone they knew, word of mouth. And that district, because we were in the Davis County district of Utah, it's a really good district. And I think a lot of it is due to the fact that they have set up that culture where they're going to hire people that they trust, or they're going to listen to people who come in and say, hey, we have this friend of ours he's a really hard worker and such, and we think he'd be good for the job. And that's how our manager would get his referrals, and then he would interview them. But 90% of the people that work there got hired through word of mouth. And so I think that that's a really effective way for them to do that, and also to make sure they keep that culture. Something that I thought was interesting was the personality test. Have any of you worked for a company where you've had to take a personality test before you're hired or anything?
I didn't have to take one, but I now administer them.
Oh.
When it gives me a good idea of whether or not I want to hire certain people, different people that apply, just where their focus is. I don't know. It's worked well for me.
Yeah.
In hiring.
That's awesome. Has anyone else gone through a process of that?
Does Facebook count?
Why not? Do you contact people through Facebook to find out about your job?
Oh, no, more qualified, kind of mesh with our property management. So that's actually a good idea to that worked well for you, Michelle?
Facebook stalking, is that what we're talking about?
No, the personality test.
Oh, the personality test did work. Yeah, it did to a certain extent. Yes, I got employees with some qualities. What works best of all is word of mouth, is having an employee, a current employee, say, hey, I have this friend that I think would fit in and would work really well in this position. That's the best kind.
Yeah. The company that I work for right now, I've been there almost 19 years, 18 years now, I guess. Last time we hired somebody was we hired a salesman 4 years ago. We have no turnover. People come to work for us, and the last few people that I've had that have left, they have died.
Oh,
People
wow.
they don't leave. People work there until they die, basically.
Wow.
But we hire. I got hired there because I was a customer of the company for a while, and they liked the way I did handled my part of the deal as a customer. And when they had an opening, they called me and said, "We have a job for you if you want to come work for us." And that's how we find everybody. That's how people end up working for us, is word of mouth, or they've been on the other side of what we do. And like I said, the last person we hired was a salesman almost 4 years ago, and the last time I hired a truck driver was probably 6 years ago now. And the only reason we hired them was a guy had a heart attack and died.
Oh,
So
wow.
it's just,
Wow.
you know, some places are like that.
Yeah. We have a lot of turnover just because of the nature of our business. We have a lot of obviously counselors that work for us, and you can only hear so many stories being told before you burn out. And so we have a lot of time where they'll be in a session with a client, and they'll come out and they'll just be, you know, exhausted from listening to what that person's had to face and been through. We have kids, you know, CFS, Children and Family Services clients, and a lot of horrible stories. And so we have a lot of turnover from that. There's only so long that they last before they have to move on to something totally different. So
that sounds like it would be pretty rough to deal with on a daily basis.
Yeah.
That would be really difficult. Well, thank you for sharing those. Those are great examples. I also worked at a place that didn't have a very good turnover rate. It was actually in Rexburg. I don't know if any of you are familiar with Rexburg, but there's a call center called SSI. And I worked at that call center, and their turnover rate was really bad. But a lot of people, I mean, because you're sitting at a desk, you're calling people, you can get chewed out by people. And so a lot of people would come in, and with like a week or two, people would quit. Like a lot of people would quit. And it's kind of part of the business. It was like either you can handle it or you can't. And a lot of people didn't like it just because it wasn't really worth it. But it's just interesting to see the difference between companies that do have that word of mouth referral and how great it is, and it's super beneficial. And then I go to a call center and it's like complete opposite. So with moving on a little bit, so we see that Noodles Company, they're succeeding. They kind of turn the corner after that bump in the road where they came up with that list of 15 things they wanted to do. And after which they turned the corner and they focused on something that I think is really cool. And they kind of had this motto of every guest, every bowl, every time. So what is it about this mantra of every guest, every bowl, every time that helps form this corporate culture? Like, how does it drive corporate profits and structure for the company?
I mean, I like their consistency in this, you know, with their customers of, you know, making sure that everybody's taken care of, everything is legit, and they care, you know, it shows they care about their customers.
Yeah. Well, and at the beginning of the case study, I believe it talks about how the CEO was wanting to be able to be like more involved with the customer. He wanted to know what was going on with the customers and constantly like driving to know what they wanted. And I think that goes to show and goes into this mantra of every guest, every bowl, every time. Like, he was focused on the customer. He wanted every customer to have a good experience. He wanted them to have great food, great service. And I think that drove them to reach the limits that they have reached already.
I think the mantra kind of speaks to quality, you know, because if I'm paying $8 to $10 for a bowl of noodles, they better be good noodles, you know. But you're saying every customer, every bowl, every time. You know, if you really live by that, then you're saying, you know what, there's just not going to be a lame bowl of noodles that goes out. Like, every one of these is going to be the best that we've got. You know, there's not going to be a failed customer experience here. We're going to treat every interaction like it's the most important one that we have. So if lived properly, I think it's a great mantra.
Yeah. Thank you.
Yep.
I agree with that. Does anybody have anything else that they would like to say about this mantra or this motto that they kind of go by?
Well, I kind of like it. I think it's a good way to do business if you can be consistent in your daily operations and what you do. Then you're going to earn a lot of trust and you're going to earn a lot of repeat business.
Yeah, that's true. That's very true. And I think the total opposite can also occur, because I mean, if that doesn't happen, then you're going to lose trust really quickly, and then you're going to lose a lot of business. But I think we see the good side of it for Noodles and Company and how it is working for them really well. So how would Noodles and Company need to, I guess, stretch or expand? How do they need to now plan what to do to expand as a company? How can they expand?
Opening more stores.
Opening more stores. And we do that through franchising, or how would we open up the more stores? Or
Depends on how much control he wants to have over everything, I guess, and how many stores he wants to open. Franchising, you're releasing some of that. You're relinquishing that control. So it just depends on how big you want to grow, you know, and how much control you want to have over your company.
Yeah.
Franchising will allow you to grow at a faster pace, but again, you're not sure what you're going to be getting from those the people that you sell franchises to. The people that own my company one time tried to get into a franchise deal, and I can't remember who it was for. I think it was for Chick-fil-A, and the amount of paperwork and the stuff they had to go through to try to even just get a franchise was insanity, and they gave up on it, and somebody else ended up doing it. But they later found out that if they had gone through all that stuff and gotten the franchise, it was very, very lucrative for them. So they really missed out on an opportunity.
I think franchising would be a really good way to go. I don't know. I don't know that I would, open up a franchise myself. Just because, yes, a lot of control, well, some control is lost from the corporate level, but at the same time, I'm going to use we have Little Caesars pizza down here in Guadalajara, and you go to any of them, and it's the same thing. You get treated the same way. You get your pizza the same way. It's done the same way every time. So I just think that if the process is done correctly, properly, and everything works out the way the corporate wants it to work, I think that would be very lucrative, like Kent said. It just depends on the type of franchise, I know other franchises here that are not the same, and they kind of let you do your thing, and they only require you to do certain things. But if you want to, I think franchising would be probably the fastest way to grow. It would be very lucrative, but I think it's got to be well done. It's got to be well established.
So I guess going off that a little bit, what would we recommend, or what would we recommend for Noodles and Company to do in franchising, but making sure that they keep that culture? Would we hire more, upper level management? What do you guys think they would need to do to keep that culture, but also growing more through franchising with someone?
I think part of what they're talking about with incentives in the case study could be really good. Bringing people on to franchise, but giving them a real piece of ownership in that, making them a part of the company, so that they feel valued enough to make that particular branch of the company their own, to make it profitable, not just so that they make money and keep the doors open, but because they want equity. They want bonuses, whatever incentives could be given, so that they feel like what they put in is being returned to some extent.
Yeah, and another thing is, the same thing that happened when they were hiring the new employees. They made them feel like owners, just like Nicholas is saying. So if they can do something like that with franchisees, there's a good chance that they're going to try to do their best in order to make this business succeed, even though it's not a name that they came up with. It's it's somebody else's name, but they're going to make it their own business. It's going to be theirs. Whether or not they started it from scratch doesn't really matter.
Yeah. I think it would be important to bring them in. Anyone who is interested in owning a franchise, or anyone that they're deciding whether or not they're going to grant them a franchise, would be important to bring them in, let them spend time in one of the current stores, and let them see how well things work and how their process works really well, and sell the franchisee on their values and the ideas that they have and the things that they do, so that they keep that culture going that they want, I guess.
Yeah, and I think they should hire. They should do the same that they do when they hire somebody. They are very selective with the people, with management. So if somebody just wants to open up a franchise, obviously after an interview, you're going to know whether or not this person, or at least you're going to have an idea. Maybe you're not going to know for sure, right? Because we never know. But at least you can be selective that way, in the same way that you're selective when you're hiring a manager.
Right.
So
I think we've and Ross.
Well, we lost Trent and Ross.
Oh, did we really?
Mm-hmm.
yeah, Ross said he couldn't get back on. He was trying. I'm not sure if the link changed. Well, Trent made it back.
I'm wondering if it's still my Wi-Fi. It says that I have full bars, but man, I feel bad. Well, hopefully it's not my Wi-Fi. Can everyone hear me, or am I like pretty?
I don't think it would be your connection.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm getting bits and pieces, but I'm having problems on my end too now.
Okay, man. Because every once in a while, it'll still kind of like, I guess, like I won't hear everything, but it's usually just like a few words. But I'm wondering, I don't know if that's my internet or what. But hopefully it'll keep working. But thank you for your comments. I really appreciated that. So, how can organizational culture make or break a strategy in any company? So, talking about like whatever company you want to talk about, like Nike, Adidas, or Walmart, how can an organizational culture make or break that company?
So,
Well, if you're sorry, go ahead.
oh, please, Michelle.
No. Well, if your company culture is very focused on customer service and the quality of the product that you're selling, then that's going to make you successful. If it's not focused on those important things, then you're not going to be successful at all.
Mm-hmm. I agree. Nick, were you going to say something?
Oh yeah, sure. I was just gonna say, I think one of the biggest words that they use at Walmart that I've heard is strategy. Yeah, it's like, well, we got to come up with a strategy for this, or develop a strategy for that. Well, that's great, right? Strategy is awesome. But if people don't want to execute your strategy, well, then your strategy isn't going to go very far. But I feel like it's the organizational culture that makes people want to come to work that's going to enable them to drive whatever strategy it is. It doesn't matter how great a plan you have unless people are happy enough to get behind you and follow you to the destination.
Right.
Yeah, I agree with that. I think this goes actually kind of hand in hand with the gospel. I mean, it's really easy for us to just kind of be more self-centered, think about ourselves, think about what we need to do, what's wrong with us. But we know that when we lose ourselves in the service of God, or when we are thinking about others, trying to serve others, what can I do for other people, that's when really we find out who we are. We become better people, and we tend to work better with people. And I think that goes hand in hand with business as well. If you have a manager that's just constantly like thinking about himself, never asking what he could do better, what the team could do better, what the customer's liking, I think it's just, you're not going to be as successful, just because you're thinking about yourself rather than thinking about who you're trying to sell to and who is actually going to buy this product or whatever you're selling. And I think as long as that organizational culture is thinking about others, thinking about what the people want, what the customer wants, what they're seeking, I think it just goes hand in hand with the gospel and making sure that you are successful and you actually reach your full potential. And that was just something that I was thinking about in regards to, I guess, like being selfish and not being selfish, and being more outward and service oriented and looking for things that you can do for other people, and that would help you be more successful. Does anyone have anything else that they would like to say in regards to that?
I just thought of the book Good to Great. I'm sure you guys read it. When it talks about giving back, I think that's, and back to the scripture that you didn't really quote it, but you said it. But when we're at the service of Heavenly Father or God, I'm not sure how it says it in English. You're only at when you're, how does it go? When you're at the service of your fellow man, you're only at the service of God, something like that.
That's it.
I just translated it. I don't know if it says the same. But one thing that all of the examples that Jim Collins mentions in the book of the successful companies, that are companies that became great, they all had some sort of process established within that company to give back to the community. And I think that that's part of it. If you want to make sure that you grow, you have to give back. You have to somehow, I don't know, I just think of tithing and fast offerings. And I have a lot of, I have a big testimony about tithing and fast offerings. It just makes me think of that, and yes, I'm thinking about myself, but it's because I'm helping other people with fast offerings, and specifically fast offerings, right? Not really with tithing. It's not my money. But with fast offerings, you're really servicing other people. And I think in a company, it works the same way. When the company does that, they get back more than they actually gave. Or, I don't know. I think that part is really cool. And when I open my business, I know that's something that I want to do. It's, establish some sort of process to give back to the community, whether that's financially or just donating time to, some sort of organization.
Oh, thank you. That was awesome. Those are great points. I think it's awesome to see how we can apply these into the gospel as well. I think it just goes to show that we truly can apply the gospel into like any situation, whether it's in business or whether it's in just our personal lives. So did any of you do the readings for this week? Not the case study, but the readings from the book.
I didn't get that far.
Okay, that's all right. I was just gonna see if there were any connections that you guys had made between the book and the case study. Have you guys made any, like, can you make any connections between what we've read before in this case study?
Yeah, I think the team effort, teamwork is definitely one of them. You know, he didn't make this whole company on its own. He had two other investors, and then he hired really good people to help him, and they made a great team in order to make sure this company was successful. I think that's part of it.
Yeah, I totally agree. I think he had the perfect team set up. I think with that team that he had, he knew that he was going to be successful, and we see that they were successful. And so that was something that definitely stood out to me, is the importance of a team, but not only that, but having a team that's unified. I think we've had multiple case studies where we've talked about unity, and having a team that's unified is what's going to be able to help you be successful. And I think that you see that Noodles and Company was unified as a team, and you see that they succeeded. Is there anything else that anyone's seen in connections from the readings in this case study?
Well, I think you touched on it. The only way to be successful is you have to work together. Even if you don't like other employees, or you have employees that don't get along, you've got to find a way to get them to work together to be successful.
Mm-hmm.
That's right. Even if it requires like awkward communications, awkward interviews, bringing up those awkward situations where when your boss comes and like says, "Hey, can I bring you into my office? Like, we need to talk for a minute," and you know it's either, well, this is either going to be really good, or I'm either going to get chastised. I don't know. But I think, just like you said, like, it has to be unified. And I think when you have a company where you're comfortable going into a meeting with upper level management, and you're knowing, hey, you know what? I know he respects me. I know he trusts me. Like, it's going to be a good meeting. I think that just builds unity of the team. But that's always something that I personally used to get nervous about. It was like, oh man, the boss is coming. Like, I'm gonna get nervous, and we'll see how the interview goes or whatever it is. But I've noticed the last few places that I've worked at, like at that mosquito abatement and at Sherwin-Williams, where I'm working right now, I just like have complete trust in those managers, and I know that like if they're gonna come and talk to me, they're gonna be really professional. They're gonna be really caring. They're gonna encourage me to be better. And bring up those things that I can work on, but it's in a way that it unifies us as a team. It unifies me as an employee of that company, and I just think that that's a huge way to, I guess, get success in the business world.
Mm-hmm.
So, does everyone want to know what happened to Noodles and Company? You guys like to know what happened?
Sure.
But of course.
Okay. So I actually just looked up the Noodles and Company on Google, and I just got on their main website, and there's actually a page that just is like titled franchising. And so I'll just read a few lines of it because it tells us what they ended up doing. It says, Noodles and Company is a highly successful quick casual restaurant brand serving globally inspired noodle dishes, soups, salads, and sandwiches. Alongside our existing franchise partners, we operate over 450 restaurants across the country. Our concept is continually recognized for top-tier operating and financial performance within the restaurant industry. We are leading operators, innovators, and we believe strongly in our brand and put our capital behind that belief. We ask simply that our franchise partners work alongside us to deliver that high-quality noodles experience our guests come back for. Real food, real cooking, real flavors. So we see that they defranchise with specific partners, and now they are at over 450 restaurants across the country, which that's a lot. That's a lot of growth. So.
Well, it's good they still maintain control over if you were going to franchise. It sounds like they're working.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. Sorry, you cut out. I didn't really hear you. I apologize.
Oh, I just said that it sounds like they're working right along with their franchisees, so they're still maintaining a little control over their food and making sure it's quality.
Yep. Sure. All right. Well, does anyone have any other comments that they would like to make in regards to this case study, or anything that they thought was interesting that I by chance didn't bring up?
I think you did a good job, Christian. Are we meeting at the same time next week?
We're not meeting next week.
We're not meeting next week. Okay.
Nope.
That was the instruction we got from Brother Sands. Is it?
Yeah, there was no, he just sent an email about 2 hours ago, I think.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. But I am in charge of the next one as well.
Right.
If we're gonna skip that one, is there somebody else for the next? Because I think we're just skipping this next week.
We're just skipping. We're skipping next week, and I think Christian's just moving to the following week.
Yeah, I can just be moved to the following week. I'm okay with that.
He did such a good job. We want to have him back.
Yeah, that's right.
I don't know about that, but thanks. But yeah, no, I can totally. So 7:30 okay or 7:30 Mountain Time okay for everyone?
Yeah, works well for me.
Works for me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Awesome. Well, thanks again. I really appreciate your comments. So, hope everyone has a great rest of the week.
Bye, guys.
Thanks.
See ya.
Everyone have a great Thanksgiving.
Oh yeah, happy
You too.
Thanksgiving to everyone.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.